Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the Natural Healing Haven. Today we're going to talk about everything about fever from Islamic medicine point of view to alternate medicine. So we see that in Islamic medicine, the concept of fever is taken as something which purifies you, like the dua la ba'san tahura, which means it may purify you, the diseases may. There are several hadiths where Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, spoke about fever. Fever as a purification, the Prophet said, do not curse fever, for it removes sins as fire removes impurities from iron. Now, this is so deep. Like, people think that fever has to be suppressed and it has to be treated as soon as possible. But here, from a spiritual point of view, we see that just as the fire it purifies iron and then you can make swords and other armors from it and other things from it. So what are the kind of impurities which are present in our bodies? So kind of impurities like we talked about terrain are toxins, plastics, microplastics, maybe pesticidal sprays and going through food and antibiotics, some kind of heavy metals, and then we have other impurities in the form of pathogens, maybe parasites. So when the body temperature rises in fever, it tends to kill all the living toxins like pathogens and unfavorable worms and fungus. But when the body sweats, it also secretes the non living toxins like heavy metals, aluminum, mercury, lead from the body. And as the pores open and a person starts sweating, all these, um, for example, dead debris, dead cells, dead pathogens, they all start coming out, and that is why the sweat can be sometimes very smelly. The second hadith is cooling fever with water. Then he also said that fever is from the heat of hell. So put it out with water. So sponging is a great way. And in holistic health practices, we prefer flushing. We call it flushing when we do the natural ways of treating fever. So getting in a cold shower, using sponge or cloth for sponging. And then the last hadith is that can be a test and mercy. So when a believer gets sick or feverish, it is like a metal, which is when put in fire, the bad is gone from it and the good remains. So, what is the bad? We already discussed. And what is the good? So, the good can be neutrophils, lymphocytes, all the cells which are fighting to keep our body in a good shape. That can be good, scavenger hunting cells, the NK cells, and all those cells which hunt for any antigens or pathogens or allergens and foreign materials which are present in our body, and they hunt for it in the blood and they try to um, fight them. And this is the reason they increase the body temperature through the hypothalamus, which then senses that the body is going in a fighting mode. So Hadith Abu Huraira radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, there is no illness that afflicts me which is more beloved to me than fever, because it enters into every limb of mine, and Allah Azza wa Jal grants every limb its share of reward. So this is from a spiritual point of view, and it can be taken from a biological point of view that fever generally goes into every limb, and it tries to harm and kill those pathogens which are toxins or causing harm to the body. And in the further slides, we will say how they used to do it, how they used to use and induce fever to kill cancer cells, stage 4 cells. So this hadith is very profound, and I think it can also be taken as um, a kind of an alternate path where you can see the body as a coping mechanism. It is trying to heal itself by inducing fever upon itself. So, it's generally said that those children who get measles in childhood, they do not get meningitis because they get immune. But these days, all of our children, they are majority of the population is vaccinated with MMR vaccine, and they do not usually get measles. So when they see a rise in body temperature, when they're afflicted with any feverish condition, there is a fear that it might go into the brain as well. So after 101 Fahrenheit, we try to control the fever there by intervening with Tylenol, ibuprofen, or acetaminophen. So let's see the other hadiths. Ibn al-Qayyim
And Ibn
states that
al-Qayyim states
in
that
At-Tibn
he
Nabawi
states that
that
in At-Tib nabawi
fever
that the
is
leading
like
medical
most
experts in the
of
Islamic world
the
would
diseases
celebrate the
which
occurrence of
should be
fever,
rejoiced,
since it was
except
a
for chronic
clear
diseases,
indication
as
of the
far as it is
body
acute
combating the disease.
and
Yani the body is
it
really
actually
fighting with the
warms up
disease,
the body
and they would
temperature to a
say,
level
in regard
where
to the
the
many
toxic
diseases,
materials, the
we
pathogens,
rejoice at the
viruses,
onset of fever in
infections,
them,
they
just
just
as the ill person
die
rejoices at good
and are
health.
ejected out,
Fever
detoxified through
during
the body
the
either
disease
through
is much
sweat,
more beneficial
and we will
than
find that
consuming
out later
medicines,
how.
for
Ibn
it
al-Qayyim states that
processes
in
processes
At-Tibn
here means
Nabawi
eventually
that
ejection or the
fever is like
detoxification or
most of
taking it out
the
of the
diseases
body.
which should be
What
rejoiced,
something which is present
except
in
the
the
chronic
humors, that
diseases,
is the toxic
as far as it is
materials which
acute
can later on
and
harm the person.
it act. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Verily, the example of the believing servant when illness or fever afflicts him is like iron that is loha, or you can say um, metal entering into fire, and its filth goes away and its good part remains." So, what is there in body which gets warmed up and its filth goes away? So, we would metaphorize it with toxins, pathogens, viruses, and the good part remaining are the immune cells, which are actually getting activated to fight off all the pathogens, viruses, toxins which have entered our body, and they are actually the one who are recognizing in our bloodstream, organs, and other lymphatic tissues, and the NK cells, the mast cells, and all other lymphatic neutrophils. There are so many cells. They go around and they check the body. What is there which needs to be taken away from the body?
And the Hippocrates said in the early years that give me a medicine to produce a fever and I can cure any disease.
So in 1909, there was an American medical educational industrial emperor, um, Abraham Flexner, and of course, from the background that those were the times where industrial revolution took place. The Rockefellers were investing in pharmaceuticals, and they wanted something which could be patented and later on sold into the market for monetary benefits. So Abraham Flexner is one of the person who introduced the germ theory and said diseases are contagious, they are caused by pathogens, and along with his adherence to the germ theory, he did a lot of changes in the medical system. So he was the one who was responsible for closing down a lot of African American health centers and hospitals because his concept was that African Americans, unfortunately, he thought that they are carriers of tuberculosis and tapeworm or hookworms, which could affect other white people, and he thought that they are not enough properly trained and sanitized to come into contact with white people, so they should be treating their own race. This was a very racial, racist kind of a report, and which later became laws and permanent factors in the nation. And this is a highly controversial report, and you can look it up on Wikipedia. It is still there, or on ChatGPT. However, when we see Flexner's stance on alternate medicine, any medicine which does not advocate for vaccines for cure or prevention of a disease is a form of quackery. This is what they would believe, and this is why they invested a lot into vaccinations, tablet formulations, nano formulations, syrup formulations. However, medical schools that offer training in various other holistic disciplines or modalities such as EMF therapies, phototherapies, light therapy, eclectic medicine, physiomedicalism, naturopathy, homeopathy, they were told to either drop the courses or simply the schools were shut down. Finally, the outcomes of Flexner report were that the medical education system narrowed down to medical schools interested um, to treat the symptoms and not the root cause of the disease. And preventative medicine and population health were not considered a responsibility of physicians. They bifurcated medical health into two fields, which were scientific, medical related field, and the other one was public health. So, fever and the nature of acute disease. Now, why I was telling you about Flexner report, why we see that fever is not a disease, and it's rather a symptom, and it's just a symptom which the body is trying to tell that there are toxins, pathogens, viruses which have accumulated through the course of time, and our environment, our terrain, our blood, our lymph are getting accumulated with these toxins which need a kind of a flushing now. So, fever is an acute illness, and it can be a symptom to leading to a bigger disease, and flushing is just nothing but a form of detoxification, whereas acute means short-lived. Those of you who are not aware of it, acute and chronic, the difference between them: acute just means short-lived, a chronic means long diseases which are self-limiting and are usually accompanied by fever. um, they are like having a rash, pus, and it all shows that the body wants to get rid of the unwanted material, coming out in the form of flu, rashes, pus, diarrhea. Everything wants to come out. So, I'm giving you a scenario here where you see that a splinter, or let's say a thorn, or anything, a piece of glass just goes in your skin, and now it's forming the pus. Your body will develop pus around it. It wants to expel the splinter, but what are you going to do? Are you going to remove the splinter, or are you going to treat the pus? This is where I want you to pay attention. What should be our therapy? Our therapy, a symptomatic therapy, would be just putting antibiotic around it and killing the pus and the bacteria which are coming there to tell you that something is wrong, something, um, a foreign material just came into my body and save me. So I'm going to put antibiotic and kill those bacteria. Or I'm going to remove the splinter. So, what are we really treating? Are we there to suppress fever, or are we there to remove the pathogens, the toxins which are causing fever? So,
So,
this is
coming
the
back to
question.
what really fever
Numbing
is, I
fever.
just
So,
want to
this is
give
the
you
question.
a bit
Numbing
of
fever. So, this is the
that
question.
highlights what was going
Numbing
on
fever. So, this
200
is the
years ago when
question.
the medical education was
Numbing fever. So,
changing,
this is the
and that's
question.
why I brought in the Flexner
Numbing
report.
fever. So, this
You
is the
can Google
question.
it and check it yourself and
Numbing
read it yourself
fever.
if
So,
you're
this is the
interested more.
question.
Anyhow, we were gonna
Numbing
move on
fever.
to
So,
what
this is
fever
the
is.
question. Now, fever is not always a bad sign. Fevers are a good indication that our immune system are working really good. And fevers are not just a byproduct of the immune response, um, rather, they are an immune response. Um, Raising the temperature, building immune system, and sweating. Sweating is a pathway of detoxification where all dead microbes, dead cells, debris, they all go out from the body, which is very good. Elevated body temperature triggers the cellular mechanisms that ensure that our immune systems are taking appropriate actions against the bacteria or toxins. Now, when Hippocrates was practicing medicine, a number of fevers were present. It also became clear around this time that fever was a symptom of a disease and not a disease in itself. While in the 20th century, the term fever was once used to refer to a low grade fever lasting only a few days. This term fell out of use in the early 20th century, and the symptoms it referred to are now thought to have been caused by majorly or minorly viral respiratory infections, meningitis, measles, and different kind of infections. So, what is really happening in um, the body when we see there is fever? Mostly, mothers they get very alarmed and they want to suppress it the moment the body starts to get near 100. Um, Fever does not necessarily need to be treated, and most people with the fever recover without specific medical attention. So, although it is unpleasant, fever rarely rises to a dangerous level even if untreated. And the damage to the brain generally does not occur until temperatures reach 42 Celsius or 107.6 Fahrenheit, and it is rare for an untreated fever to exceed 40.6 Celsius or 105.1 Fahrenheit. Now, I'm not saying that not to medicate your child. Of course, you will intervene when you see that a child is no more able to comprehend or he is down and his body temperature is too high. Treating fever in people with sepsis does not affect the outcome. So you have to treat the whole body, you have to treat the cause of the fever, you have to treat the sepsis too. Either it is respiratory related, fevers related to the viral respiratory viruses, or fevers related to other infections in the body. So, small trials have shown no benefit of treating fevers if they are at 101.3 Fahrenheit. Why? This is important because sometimes just a higher body temperature is killing off those viruses, pathogens, bacterial sepsis, which are causing fever. So, a higher temperature could be helping, especially a terminated ill patient or a patient who's receiving aggressive treatments. Um, it could be rather helping them. So, according to NIH, the two assumptions which are generally used to argue in favor of treating fevers have not been experimentally validated. These are number one, a fever is noxious and dangerous. Number two, suppression of a fever will reduce its noxious effects. Now, most of the other studies supporting the association of fever with poorer outcomes have been observational in nature. In theory, these critically ill patients and those faced with additional physiological stress may benefit from fever reduction, but the evidence on both sides of the argument appears to be mostly equivocal. Fever is an acute illness, and it's a great way to fight when the body prepares to ward off chronic diseases. Fever is a detox pathway for the body to get rid of toxins in order to keep its terrain, the blood, the lymph clean. Hindering this detoxification process at a low grade fever means to stop your body from eliminating any toxins and let them accumulate inside our body.
So,
So there was a
fevers enhance
scientist,
our immune
an MD
system and are a
doctor, William
sign that our
Coley.
bodies
He
are
was a
able to
surgeon in
fight. Let
1980,
me walk you through
and
a story of William
he
Coley,
did a
a
research
young
on stage
surgeon
4
in
cancer
1890s
patients,
who is very
um,
well known for his
in
contributions
where
to the study of
he
cancer and
contributed to their
immunotherapy.
health by
So, fevers
inducing fever
enhance
in
our
them.
immune system and
He
are a
was
sign
using
that our bodies
Coley's
are able to
toxins,
fight.
which I'm going to talk about. Coley was not an alternate doctor. He was a proper MD doctor, chief of a bone sarcoma unit at Memorial Hospital, New York, America's first cancer hospital. This it is it here. Mm, and he invented Coley's toxins, and he was using them for around 40 years. He would inject streptococcal bacteria, Serratia marcescens endotoxins into cancer patients, and then he saw that body temperatures were rising, the immune system was getting activated, and that was resulting in killing off the cancer cells. Huge, huge, massive achievement by Coley. Coley treated thousands of cancer patients, mostly with inoperable sarcomas, and his toxins were made available to physicians across Europe and North America. In 1945, study calculated a 60% cure rate among more than 300 cases of inoperable cancer. This is astonishing for anything modern medicine oncology has to offer for a stage 4 cancer patient. James Irving, a pathologist and experimental oncologist who was fanatically obsessed with radiation therapy, forbade Coley to use his treatment at the Memorial Hospital. And finally, FDA banned Coley's toxins in 1962 and refused to acknowledge them as proven drugs. And finally, FDA banned Coley's toxins in 1962. Now, what does all of this have to do with the changing nature of childhood illnesses? As we know now, childhood vaccinations are more than 64 shots per child now. Mostly children do not get as much sick as they were getting naturally immunized through getting sick in natural ways. The irony is that now in 2025 we have immunotherapy as most promising treatment for cancer, and we have gotten rid of the natural ways through which we could have treated other chronic illnesses, and we're getting more and more dependent on pharmaceuticals. Flushing, and what is the difference between flushing and suppression? So, what is flushing? It's just an acute illness. Flushing fever and suppression of fever refer to different approaches to manage fever. Flushing involves allowing the fever to run its course, as fever is the body's natural response to infection. Some believe that sweating and hydration help the body eliminate toxins and fight illness more effectively. Now, these few people are natural health practitioners, the holistic health practitioners, the alternate health practitioners, while mostly in the allopathic world, the way to limit fever is through suppression.
And suppression usually refers to intervention by medications such as ibuprofen, acetaminophen to lower the body temperature. While this can provide relief, but it, there's a debate that suppressing fever too soon may interfere with the body's immune response. A lot of times, the children, when their temperature is over 99.5 degrees, they are immediately given acetaminophen to bring down their fevers. And before even the doctor gets a chance to see them, the fever is suppressed in the waiting room by the nurse. And then the doctor evaluates what are the signs of a pus or is there a bacterial infection. And then he would diagnose with bronchitis, sinusitis, ear infection, or whatever the protocol is, and prescribe antibiotics to kill the white blood cells, dead white blood cells, or the pus. But the real cause of the disease is somehow lost in those interventions. And any medical worldview that ignores the role of fever and acute illness in the development of the immune system, as our medical establishment currently does, will also be fundamentally misguided in treatment protocols, as our dominant medical establishment currently is. And so fever is all really, it goes on from the brain in your mind, the hypothalamus, and many fevers which are caused by bacteria, viruses, and toxins, they either present themselves as a surface antigen, triggering chemicals, metabolites. These are all known as exogenous parogens, which enhance or stimulate the temperature control mechanisms in the hypothalamus. So your hypothalamus is the one which sets the temperature for the body, and that's how the body feels shivers, that's how the body sweats. A usual technique to bring down fever is flannels and wet cloths, sponging. Tepid baths are also used, and you can have a look on the link below. So the conventional aspirin, which is used to control fever, it acts only on the thermostat, that's the hypothalamus, to bring down fever, unless the doctor reaches the cause of the fever. There is a risk of unresolved underlying problems with suppressing fever. The use of aspirin in children is discontinued in recent years because of incidents of serious side effects. However, the alternate changing of paracetamol and brufen are still beneficial for reducing fever. An alternate doctor would always look at the wisdom in bringing down fever without affecting the antibody production and cell repair, which is needed in the long run to fight the chronic illnesses. Accepting the potential value of fever does not mean consigning the patient to unnecessary discomfort. We still are apprehensive about fever, and there are, of course, dangerous signs as well. A pulse that does not rise with temperature as expected might result in meningitis. Convulsions, so common enough in children, can disguise and exacerbate polio. Dry cough of measles can resemble pneumonia. And malaria remains impossible to diagnose without a blood test. So, to reduce the chills and encourage cooling perspiration, we take hot infusions of yarrow or elderflower or chamomile, lime flower, catmint, boneset, and this is to reduce the chills. It means when the fever on the thermometer is quite low. So that's why patient is perspirating. For gentle but stronger reduction in febrile temperatures, the cooling bitters like dandelion root, gentian root, chicory, and sanctuary are used. For gentle but stronger reduction in febrile temperatures, the cooling sometimes in chronic low-grade infections, fever may be induced to benefit from its therapeutic effects. For example, in treating chronic catarrh, if a patient is constantly discharging mucus for long term, um, for example, for years and years, so he's constantly like that, and especially in the nose and throat, he has inflammation of mucous membranes. Then, before giving him a good cinnamon, ginger, raw garlic, or cayenne, we would advise him to go on a bed rest, have fresh diet, drink plenty of fluids, and then introduced a good circulatory stimulant like cinnamon, ginger, raw garlic, or cayenne to fight with this chronic catarrh. And like I said, the ginger, garlic, and cinnamon, they can be taken in a tea form or in raw form, whatever way the patient is comfortable to consume it. And like I said, the ginger, garlic, and cinnamon, they can be taken in a tea form or in raw form, whatever way the so fevers due to cold or sore throat, if there is no underlying serious infection and warming remedies, they might be chosen. For example, echinacea root being both warming and stimulating the mucosal immune defenses, so may be particularly useful here.
So this is the end of this video, and here I have Parashield and Pure Body Extra Natural Nano Size Zeolite, which helps in detoxifying the body from heavy metals, pathogens, viruses, and from hookworms, parasites, and the worms which can stay in your intestines. However, these statements have not been evaluated by FDA, and this product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease, but however, to keep your body in a detoxed, um, clean environment, to provide it that terrain so that stays clean. These products have been really helpful for me and my family. I hope you benefit from them as well. And so please subscribe and share my videos. 50% of the followers or viewers who watch my videos have not subscribed yet. So please, I would request you to click the subscribe button and subscribe. Have a good day. Wassalama.